everyone. For this part of the Enchanted World series, we're going over the Book of Christmas. Yes, there actually is a Christmas volume here. And the cover shows a Christmas tree, of course, and surrounded by Woodland Critter Christmas. Woodland Critter Christmas here. Before South Park got a hold of it. And this particular copy I had was apparently owned by Miss Elizabeth Kruger. First edition sticker. I think my mother had one of these in her books. But let's see. And we'll start with the beginning pictures. Not overly extravagant, but very nice. You got these couple of angels playing musical instruments, and next one, they got an extra player. Don't have much in the third, but the last one, they're still playing. Up to 4 still playing. So, and again, this book will talk about not just Christmas, but how many other cultures celebrate that around the same time of the year. And it will talk also about the nativity itself. We have this picture. Carol was saying, and even the trees, the orchids bowed down to Mary the Virgin. They bent their laden branches to her hand, that she might have cherries by command. So, 2-pager here. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, up out of the city of Nazareth, into Judea, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child. And she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. There were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them. The glory of the Lord shone round about them, and they were sore afraid. Of course, throughout this book, they have little center pieces within the text, as well as the borders. Oh, here we go. Days of winter magic. Years ago, when life depended on the proper rounds of tilling, sowing, harvesting, and recovering of the sun to begin each cycle anew, not only Christmas, but all days of the winter season were filled with magic. The days were therefore devoted to rituals of the field to ensure good herds and harvests, of the hearth to protect the houses, and of the fires to drive away the dark. In France and Germany, and parts of Britain, for instance, winter began on Martimas, St. Martin's Day, on November 11th. When those gifted with vision might see the saint himself riding across the meadow and field on his white horse, releasing from the folds of his cloak the first snow of the season. Martin was an earlier Christian saint, so generous that he cut his cloak in half to warm a freezing beggar, and passed a wine cup an emperor gave him to the humblest of priests. He was a patron of wine and vintners. Bonfires were lighted on the eve of the day, and animals that could not be fed through winter were slaughtered and salted down, perhaps in memory of the older winter sacrifices. Their blood was sometimes sprinkled on the owners on their owners' thresholds. St. Martin's Day was one of feasting, when the first of the new wine was drunk, and in memory of the patronage, German children placed vessels of water on their doorsteps with a plea that the water can be changed to wine. On the morning of Martimas, the winter would indeed be wine. The water would indeed be wine. Beside it would lie a special cookie, shaped like a horseshoe, to show that the saint had hidden in the night. St. Andrew's Day. November 30th, St. Andrew's Day, was a holiday in Scotland and Central Europe and Greece. For the Scots, it was a day when squirrels were traditionally hunted and eaten at feast. Further south, the eve of the day was one of prophecy, when maidens might see in dreams the men they were to marry. And in Romania, the eve of the time when the dead were freed and vampires hunted countrysides and villages. Door jambs were hung with garlic then to keep the specters away, and no wise person ventured out into highways, for at the crossroads the ghostly creatures fought among themselves until dawn. Let's see. Here we go. We've got these two characters right here. St. Nicholas's Day. When the old gods ruled the world, Odin, the All-Father, rode the skies of Germany and Scandinavia to winter with a crowd of elves and spirits. Those mortals who offered him reverence were rewarded with gifts. In later years, Odin's horse, elves, and gifts became an accoutrement of the Christmas saint named Nicholas. Nicholas lived in Asia Minor because he calmed storms at sea during his life. He became a patron of sailors, and because he restored to life 3 murdered youths, he became a patron of boys. But the most famous tale concerning him was that the 3 maidens whose impoverished father planned to sell them into slavery. Nicholas redeemed them with 3 bags of dowry gold, which he flung through their windows one night, and which landed on their shoes, set to warm before the fire. For this deed, he became a patron of maidens, and the French women prayed for him, to him for husbands. He also became the patron of pawnbrokers, and his bags of gold are remembered of the 3 golden balls that were the sign of the trade. But gift-giving was his most important act. In Germany and Holland, children set out their shoes on the eve of his feast days, filling them with hay and carrots for his white horse, just as provender had been left for Odin's horse by their ancestors. Nicholas, who they knew, would ride over the rooftops of the night with his elvish companion, Ruprecht. Ruprecht carried a switch for use of naughty young ones, but Nicholas carried baskets of toys and sweets to be left in the shoes of all good children. Basically, Santa Claus and Krampus. All these things change. There we go. St. Lucia's Day. In the countries of the north, where winter darkness held longest, people yearning for light found focus on the feast days of Saint Lucia of Sicily, whose very name they thought meant light. That day on December 13th, which in early calendars marked the winter solstice. When calendars were reformed, the solstice fell on December 21st, but the Feast of Lucia continued to mark the beginning of Christmas in Sweden and in Norway. Old folks said that on the eve of the day, Lucia herself might be seen skimming across the snowfields and frozen lakes, a crown of light upon her hair. In the towns, torchlight processions were held to summon back the luminescence that had withered away, and the daughters of each house rose in the early dark, dressed in white, crowned with wreaths and lingonberry or holland and the blazing candles. They would take food and fire to their sleeping elders, singing all the while to mark the morning of St. Lucia's Day. Look at this lively picture here. The day of the solstice. From time before memory, people danced to make magic, and throughout Europe, the dawn of the solstice is a defense against the dark. A recollection of those early ceremonies lived in the form of village sword dancers, performed on the shortest of days, December 21st. Clothed in elaborate ribbon costumes, men would circle homewise from left to right in the apparent path of the sun. Using the swords they bore to form patterns in the air, the most important pattern marks the climax of the dance. It was a 6-pointed star, the earthly symbol of the longed-for sun. Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve was a time for human feasting and for something else. In Scandinavia, people said the ghosts of the dead returned in the night to visit to homes they had loved. Their descendants welcomed them. After the meal, the living had finished, the food was left for the dead. They were living, then the living retired, so the ancestors might come into the warmth of the light to make their old Christmas revels once more. Christmas Day. At midnight ushered in a day of Christmas. Tranquility descended all over the world, according to the old tales. Even in the darkness, all the birds awoke and sang, and each was a magic of the time that sparrows caroled as sweetly as nightingales. In the morning, men and women who walked into the wilderness of the world might see all the birds in field and wood and laying placidly together. Predator and prey joined for one day to make a peaceable kingdom. Let's see, this is New Year's Eve. In order that the new year might prosper, the old year and the spirit released by the solstice season had to be buried or driven away. In villages from Britain to Austria in the old year, in the form of a straw dummy called Death, was carried through the streets of then drowned in a stream or buried or burned. But other people of the village had more high-spirited costumes. On New Year's Eve, costumed in mask and disguise against malevolent powers, people paraded through their towns, striking the houses with sticks, beating drums, clanging bells, and cracking whips. The noise of the town rattle, as it was called, drove out the ghosts of the dying old year and brought the new year safely in. Twelfth Night. The eve of the 12th day of Christmas once was a time to ensure the health of growing things that had been sent to sleep by the winter. In the west of England on that night, farmers trooped into their orchards to make wassail, good health, to their apple trees. The apple tree, long revered for its fruit, was thought to house its own elfin spirit. With songs and shouts, the men called upon the tree to waken from its sleep. One reveler would be masked as a bull, symbol of fertility, and all made offerings to the tree spirit to ensure its fruitfulness. In the folk of the branches, they placed bread and salt, or sometimes a cake soaked in cider from a wassail bowl. The branches themselves were dipped in cider or sprinkled with its libation. Sorry, can't read properly. Bridget's Day. The British of ancient times had a goddess of youth and fertility named Bride. Christians called her Saint Bridget and celebrated her feast on February 1st, but the celebrations were far older than Christianity. Bride, the folk said, was held prisoner during the dark months of the mountain in the mountain of the goddess of winter, who used a silver hammer to cover the earth with ice. At the beginning of February, the young goddess was released. On the eve of the feast day in Ireland and Scotland, people set candles burning to summon and returning light to spring, which followed in Bride's footsteps. They then placed a bed of the threshold and called a welcome into the darkness. When morning came, they examined the ashes of the hearth. Signs of disturbance there were a good omen. They meant that Bride was once more abroad in the land that winter had been driven away. The Heart of Darkness. No caption here, but an interesting picture. Here we go. A disturbing image. Let's see what it's about. Stamping his feet, tossing his head, the men who played the hoarding horse pranced through British streets and brought luck to all. The Hoden was a jolly Christmas creature, but his past was dark. It was a relic of ancient winter sacrifice. This one as a kid was hard to me to look at because it's kind of dark, so you don't see all that's happening. But it is a constellation of Scorpio. There's that is the Sagittarius, and there's Capricorn. But I thought that the Capricorn was just a go on the side, and that the Scorpion, again, I couldn't see it all clearly, just had a very long tail. But no, it's just Scorpion itself. That's Sagittarius with his long tail. And, Capricorn's long tail and Sagittarius. But here, astrologer said the fate of winter-born was hidden in the constellation clustered along the zodiac. There ruled cruel Scorpio, hunted by the archer Sagittarius, with Capricorn the goatfish cavorting close behind. From the ancient breath of Kari, the winter wind, descended cold Norse gods, black frost, eternal snowbank, snowdrift, fine driven snow. Try the pages there. Then we're in the part where we're talking about the dark things that came out this time, you know. Old gods haunted the winds of Old gods haunted the winter skies of Europe, terrifying men and women. In Germany, the Hearthgard's Berchta rode the clouds, leading a train of elves and fairies, cradling the ghost of the infant dead. We came across these before. The magic of the 12 Christmas days freed the spirits of field, wood, and water. In Russian forest, nymphs called Rizolka left their lakes and streams to dance and sing their secret songs. And this little interesting image. Out of the rocks and caves, out of the solid earth itself, came goblins of Greeks called Kalikanzare, who tormented honest households where Christmas feasts were held. You have a man looking at some spirits here. At Christmas, the future was revealed. A man might see the shades of those who had died in the new year, but among them he might also see himself. A winter crone called Frau Gaud crept at Christmastide into Austrian villages, leading her pack of demon dogs. Woe to the families whose doors were left open. Frau Gaud sent her dogs in, and nothing could drive the beast away. Yeah. This picture is not as cheery as it appears. Among Iceland's destructive winter spirits were the Christmas lads. 13 trolls invaded farms, took food, and stole the children. And there's one of them right now being taken away. These are not the same children, but if you notice, there is a ogre in the background. No matter how stern the ogres of winter, they could be defeated by guile or luck. So some lap children, stolen from the giant Stallo, escaped from his sack, leaving stones in places. The giant dragged the sack to his lair, while the children ran home. I won't read this story, but you should be familiar with this one. The Midnight Battle, but you would know it by the Nutcracker Suite. On Christmas Eve, in a house of Nuremberg, mantled by snow, the children Fritz and Mary waited for the lights of Christmas and the magic made by Drosselmeyer, the clockmaker. You see the two children right here, but they're again right here, and there's the clockmaker with the eye patch. Let's see. Under the clockmaker's eye, the Christmas revels proceeded, and in his enchanted castle, miniature people revealed too. Fritz played with an army of soldiers. Mary cradled a nutcracker. Before midnight, the nutcracker was laid away. The lights were dimmed. The young ones were led to their bedchambers, and Drosselmeyer watched it all and smiled a secret smile. Oh, here it comes. When the house was asleep, Mary returned for the nutcracker. As she entered the room, the clock chimed midnight, and Drosselmeyer's command summoned a mouse army that ruled the dark. The mice grew and Mary shrank, leaving helpless against their power. But Christmas, engendered benign enchantment too. The nutcracker sprang to life, calling soldiers to battle. Of course, the Nutcracker is right here. But the toy soldiers with a young boy there. Yep, they're coming to help. Let's see. Brave and brilliant in battle, the Nutcracker defeated the king of the mouse army. With the death of their king, the night creatures fled. Mary's heart was won. Of course, the clockmaker is flying above. Morning light fell on the scene of destruction, Mary unconscious, clutching the Nutcracker. The toys of Christmas lay broken among the scattered crowns of the king of mice. Because she gave her heart to Nutcracker, a creature of the other world, Mary joined him in the castle of enchantment. There, like the Nutcracker, she danced to Drosselmeyer's a measure. You got a man enjoying some drink, and, you know, with a hog's head in front of him. Looks like he's having a good time. These unusual festivities here. Like some people trying to recreate Alice in Wonderland. Let's see. Under the eyes of the Lord of Misrule, old Christmas feasts rollicked and roared. Minstrels played, jugglers juggled, tumblers tumbled, and hidden within their beast mask, troops of murmurs enacted their ancient plays to celebrate life and light. Singing as they went, people took the bounty of Christmas across the fields of winter. The boar, a relic of sacrifices long ago, and the Yule log, whose fire would summon the returning sun. We'll continue on. Of course, further north, as winter deepened in the far north, the sun hid itself from human view. Norsemen sent scouts to the high mountains to watch for the first streak of returning light. When it was seen, the great Yule feast began. From town to town went Father Christmas with his murmurs and their stage. They enacted the St. George play, in which the dead were brought to life, even as the dying sun returned to shine again when the darkest winter day had passed. There it is. And we got our next section here. And this section right here talks about benevolent spirits and of Christmas. The Julenissen. The Christmas gift bringers of Norway and Denmark were household elves that lived during the year in antics and stables. On Christmas Eve, they emerged to hide presents all around the house. Befana. An old woman who rode a broomstick through the air gave Italian children presents at Christmas. If they were good, coals if they were not. Befana was her name. She journeyed on Epiphany Eve. Christkindl. Riding a tiny deer laden with sweets and toys, an angel visited German families every Christmas Eve. The pretty creature was an emissary from heaven, and so was called the Christ child. Kolyada. On Christmas Eve in Russia, a white-robed elf maiden traveled by sleigh from house to house. The children of the village sang carols to honor her. Kolyada rewarded them with Christmas treats. Saint Nicholas. Best known and loved of Christmas spirits was Saint Nick, whose horse hooves were heard on Dutch rooftops on the eve of December 6. He slid down chimneys, bringing things to fill the young one's shoes. This was something on the side here. Gifts sometimes came by winter magic and from unexpected quarters. This happened to a poor man who chanced upon a dwarf's cave. He started back in fear, for dwarves could be dangerous, but the little creature had presents to give. Linked in spirit to Scandinavian legendary Let me start again. Linked in spirit to Scandinavia's legendary world tree, to fir boughs hung in Roman houses, and to branches brought indoors by Austrians to flower in winter. A decorated tree became the sign of Christmas. Oh, I just love the atmosphere of this painting here. A Russian tale told how a couple shaped a maiden from the snows of the cold season. She came to life and spent her days among mortals, but those days were brief. The sun of springtime melted her to mist. Atmospheric, but very tragic story with it. The songs of Christmas. These are some of these are some of the old songs of Christmas that we're all familiar with, and some of these I need to look up to see how they sound because I'm not familiar with them. Here's some examples. We know Deck the Halls, and there's the lyrics right here. That shows the accompanying image that goes with it. Gloucestershire's Wassail. Holly and Ivy. Now, this one, the one before it, I'm not familiar with. I need to look those up, see how they sound, if anyone knows how to play them anymore. Stephen was a stable boy. Of course, the artist is a brilliant one here. I Saw Three Ships. We all know, many of us know that song. The Stork. Again, I'm not familiar with this one. The Friendly Beast, also not familiar with that one. Carol of the Birds. Good King Wenceslas. And of course, the ever-long one, The 12 Days of Christmas. And this one goes for 2 pages. Yeah, we got the partridge in the pear tree. And all the things that accompany it. A Light Triumphant. For those liking gifts to give to Christ child at the Nativity, miracles occurred. To ease the heart of the maiden Madeline, who arrived empty-handed, the archangel Gabriel struck the ground and caused the Christmas rose to bloom. Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came three wise men from the east to Jerusalem. This mess. Now allow me to turn the page. Some more text. And of course. And when they came into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts. That is the end of it. Probably a good book to look through if you get into if you like that good old-fashioned Christmas spirit and all the stuff that comes with it. There you go, the Book of Christmas of the Enchanted World series. Thank you all for watching. You all have a nice day.